Bom, e se você sabe, a gente está no mês da remuneração, então esse mês de maio é super especial para a carreira, porque além dos 30 anos que a gente comemora, a gente também está oferecendo uma condição especial para os novos contratos de consulta salarial, que é a maior plataforma de remuneração do Brasil. Então, se você quiser saber mais sobre como virar cliente da consulta, sobre como conhecer essa plataforma, clica no link aqui embaixo, que agora é sua chance, 10% de desconto. Dia 19 de junho, a gente vai promover uma experiência imersiva, então você vai poder acompanhar as gravações do podcast, então uma experiência ali, ver os bastidores, conhecer a gente, estar em contato com mais de 300 profissionais de remuneração. Tudo num dia só, muito especial, um momento de conexão, de networking. Tenho certeza que você vai curtir. Quer conhecer? Quer saber quanto custa para você estar lá com a gente nesse dia? É barato, hein? Já vou adiantar aqui, ó. Vou te falar que a entrega está muito maior do que o preço. Clica no link aí da descrição. A entrevista que você vai ver agora é com o Patel. Ele é VP de remuneração na Moderna, que é uma empresa do segmento de pesquisa biotecnológica. Sabe aquelas dúvidas que as pessoas têm sobre carreira, sobre remuneração, em que muitas vezes com vergonha de chegar para RH e perguntar? Pois é, o Patel apresentou uma solução, um case, sobre como utilizar a inteligência artificial para resolver essas questões. Bora para a conversa?
Sejam muito bem-vindos mais uma vez a mais um episódio. A gente está aqui no evento nos Estados Unidos, no Rewards 24. Está sendo um privilégio. Nós somos a companhia do Ham, eu vou apresentar ele daqui a pouquinho. Espero que vocês estejam curtindo. Então, toda vez que vocês curtem um vídeo, a gente mostra que esse vídeo é interessante para outras pessoas e ele consegue ser espalhado da melhor forma. Se você está curtindo, não esquece de apertar aquele botãozinho que é importante. Se você não nos segue ainda, então você tem essa oportunidade agora. Porque aí se você segue, você acompanha tudo que a gente está publicando. A gente também está no Instagram, fazendo muito conteúdo por lá. Então vai lá no @carreiramiller e aproveita para seguir tudo que a gente faz fora dessas câmeras aqui. Pô, essa galera do Brasil é muito maneira. Se você ouvir muita conversa, muita coisa, ó, se você está no Spotify agora e não fala inglês, eu recomendo que você vá lá pro YouTube, porque a gente está legendando todos os episódios e você pode aproveitar aí, sabe, muito melhor, ver as imagens também. Você vai ver a galera brasileira frequentando esse local que a gente está, então é uma grande oportunidade. Vem com a gente agora. Patel, welcome to the Quinto Dia Útil podcast.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's our pleasure to be here with you in this event. What do you think about this moment with I think we have almost 3,000 people here. Scott was telling us, like, what are your feelings about this event?
So this is my second time at World at Work, and it gets bigger every year, and I think it gets better every year too. It's the only event I can think of where it's so tailored. It's as large as this, but it's so tailored to what we do. So I lead Total Rewards, and there's not one topic here that I don't touch in some way. And so I don't know how many sessions there are, probably over 100. I love the fact that they're recorded, so I can go back and listen to some of them. I can download the slides. I think it's honestly one of the things that I earmark at the start of the year as to one of the events that I'm going to prioritize, because it's just so helpful for me to actually take things back to work that I can actually use.
How long have you been working with it?
In Total Rewards, you mean? So I've been working in sort of the HR and Total Rewards space for about 21 years now.
Wow.
I spent the first 18 years at a consulting company, which is now called WTW. But I focused almost all of that time working on a very small little niche area called executive compensation. So I did that from the first day of work in 2003 when I left university. I spent 8 years doing that in London, and then I moved to New York and did that for 10 years. And then I really loved it. I loved the work that I did. I loved the clients. I loved the team. But in 2021, this small company that nobody had ever heard of all of a sudden became a huge global name. His name was Moderna. And I had former clients who worked at Moderna and asked if I could possibly help with providing some consulting support. And lo and behold, within a few months, I was applying for the Total Rewards job. I was very lucky that Moderna takes chances on people. So I'd never done the job before. I knew a lot about executive compensation, but I knew very little about benefits or global mobility or payroll or equity administration. And they said, you'll figure it out. You can do that stuff. You'll learn. So yeah, about 20 odd years.
Yeah. And you told us you have a 7-year-old boy at home. How do you explain to him what do you do for a living?
Great question. I'm going to have to put that into a ChatGPT, I think, actually. It was funny. He had a school play that he had last Friday morning. And so as we were going to the play at his school, he said, how are you? You can't come to the play. And I said, why not? He said, well, you lead the team. What's the team going to do? Aren't you the captain? He's a big soccer fan. And so he said, you're the captain. How are they going to know what work to do if you're not there? And I said, I have a great team. They know what work they're doing. So he knows I do something in HR, but he has really no idea about what programs or kind of any of the impact we have.
What is easier, like to work with AI or to care your 7-year-old boy?
AI is easier. Playing with AJ is more fun.
I agree. I have 2 boys in my home too. Like, it's a special experience, I think.
Yes, it takes a lot of energy. We like to play soccer in his bedroom, and he just kicked me on the knee, and now I'm still limping around. So,
which team does he support?
He's a Liverpool fan. He has no choice. But as kids now, they support players instead of teams. And so he's a huge...
The player changed team?
Exactly. So he's an Mbappe fan, which means that he will soon become a Real Madrid fan. And then we're going to have some issues. So I don't know if I'm going to buy him a Real Madrid shirt.
But it's a good team to support because they win all the time.
They do. Annoyingly, they win against Liverpool many times in Champions League finals. But yes.
Yeah, we were also supporting Liverpool sometimes because of Brazilian players, Alisson. And so it's interesting for us to Liverpool as well because they have lots of Brazilian players.
Yeah. We've got a history of great Brazilian players.
And now they are changing the coach.
Yes. Yeah, that's...
Klopp?
Jurgen Klopp left on Sunday, which I was taking the flight here just as the game was ending, and I was watching it on my phone. Honestly, it sounds kind of funny, but I've taken a lot of lessons in life from the way that he coaches and speaks. And Liverpool's that kind of club where when the supporters come together and the players come together and the ownership, and when that happens, the momentum that it creates is just so incredible. And that's something that he's managed to really bring back to the club after 9 years, where we didn't have that. And I think you can always, he will often do a Christmas video, and I will then, take some of those themes and actually weave it into the email that I'll send to the team just to talk about kind of unity and those kinds of things. So I think there's a lot of lessons you can get from supporting soccer teams or sport in general that you can apply to life.
It's my favorite sport, yeah. I agree with you. It's different when we see the coaches in Europe, like in Brazil, we have maybe 1 year in each team, like the coaches, there's no long life in a team. All the projects are short, unfortunately, because you can't build a good story and you can prepare for the next season. It's a problem for us. And I think this is one of the reasons that Brazilian soccer is going down. It's not growing like European soccer. I think is the best right now, like especially the English Premier League. I think is the first, but the German, a
lot of South American players doing better there than they do in their country or their former team.
And that's something we can relate to the topic about equity payments, because the coaches don't stay for long-term contract in the football teams, so soccer teams. So how can we compensate them and give them this ownership feeling and make them vestir a camisa, we say in Portuguese. So
to be part,
to
like
be part
of the game,
like that ownership. Yeah, it's a great question from an equity perspective, because so at Moderna we have just under 6,000 employees, and our average tenure is about 1.5 years.
1.5.
Which sounds really, really short.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, when I joined the company in 21, we had somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 employees.
Oh, okay.
So 4,000 to 5,000 of the employees are new at least over the last 3 years. And so we do have longer tenured people, of course. However, when the company's so new, the company's only been around for 13 years. So when you think about that short time period and the fact that we grant equity to everyone, One of the nice things around our equity program, our standard equity program, we have both new hire grants and annual grants, is that unlike a typical pharma company where typical practice is to say this is going to cliff vest after 3 years, we actually have 25% of the award vests after 1 year, and then every quarter after that. So through to 4 years. But at least after 2 years, 50% of your grant has vested. So you don't have to be there for the full 3 years. So you immediately start to, at least within that 12-month period, you start to see the value in that program. And so
start to have results a lot faster than usually.
Exactly.
That's nice.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a pretty typical kind of early stage biotech and tech industry practice when it comes to equity. But we think it adds to our value proposition.
Yeah. And how is the adoption, or like, do you train people to understand that? Because one question I have is when you grant LTIs for everyone, not all the employees, are used to the stock market. They, are understand how the stock market goes and how the shares might undervalue or go underwater in the future. And how do you approach that?
Yeah, so we try our best to educate both candidates, our talent acquisition team, and we equip them with tools. So we do give them, because we give choice. So when even upon the new hire grant, new hires can choose how they take their equity. Now, what makes it a little bit easier for us is that it's all purely time-based. So there's no performance-based element to it. We argue that options are inherently performance-based because the stock price has to go up. But we give them the tools to say, hey, your new hire grant is $100,000. You can take it either 100% in options, 100% in RSUs, and we give them access to a modeler that says if the stock price is X on the day of grant and Y when it vests, this is how much it would be worth. And so they can do that modeling for themselves to say, okay, well, what's my risk appetite? How comfortable would I be that, hey, the options might be underwater for a little while, but I'm not relying on that cash to pay for the mortgage or whatever it may be. So we try and educate people, but obviously when you have that many employees and in different countries where the degree of understanding differs, we obviously end up having to answer a lot of questions about that. But we think that's time well spent because it's such a big part of what we think differentiates us from larger companies where typically you don't participate in the equity program until maybe the director level and above.
Only executives were able to choose from these options. And so it's a flexible pay. They can choose from, options or RSUs. Well, I wonder if you keep record of what they're choosing. Like,
yeah, I mean, obviously we have to from an administrative standpoint, but we don't report that information out at an individual level. So I will report out to the executive committee and to the comp committee on an aggregated basis. So we'll show it by a grade, for example, but we don't show it by individual because that's an individual choice based on your own personal circumstances. So, whether you have private tuition fees to pay or college education to pay for a down payment on a house, that may influence your decision one way or the other. It's not necessarily reflective of how you feel about the company or the long-term prospects. You're just in need of short-term cash and you want more of the guarantee. So we think it's important to make sure that information is kept anonymous.
Do they can choose to have more like fixed pay? Or only between the types of variable pay?
Yeah, so that's the next evolution that I know companies like Shopify.
Last year
they were here.
Last year you were in.
I attended that same event. So I think that's probably the next evolution of this. And who knows? Maybe we'll be able to lean into that and maybe pilot it with a small group. But for now, we are still very much in a base bonus and equity space, but we do want to give choice, and we do give choice within that equity piece.
And how do you deal with the communication about this flexibility? So I think people have different knowledge levels about it. How can I choose these different kinds of variable payments, and how much how much I know about it. So how it will influence my life, my daily life. Do you work on it to communicate and to teach people how to choose?
We do. So we can't give financial advice, right? That's a requirement here that we're certainly in the US, where you can't tell people that they should do one thing or another. You can educate them. And I think probably the best barometer or the best evaluation of how effective our communication is the fact that so few people default to the default election. So most employees, more than 90%, are making an active election. So even if that's to say, hey, the default is 50-50.
Okay.
But they can still click in to say 50-50 rather than just saying, well, I'll just leave it alone because that's what I want. And so the fact that people are going in and making an active election and or picking actually something that isn't 50-50 tells us that it's working. And now, are they on every occasion, do they know exactly what this means? Probably not, if we're being honest. But I think just the fact that people are at least making that election means that they have some understanding that they have had the autonomy and the agency to have control over how they're receiving that pay.
Okay.
That's good.
Good to understand. I was reading here, and we were talking like, the program looks like Shopify. You need to do this question, and of course you have this first.
He's also a Brazilian guy, so the one who presented this case.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Last year.
Yep.
It was nice. It was a nice conversation. Yeah. But turns out there's like, I think you have the cream de la cream in AI. AI is something that João was watching you, and he told us like, I think we have a great conversation coming. And tell us, how was your first contact with it, and your thoughts about AI in your day, like doing all the activities you do, but all the control you have, the communication you have with the team. So tell us first of all your thoughts about this.
Yeah, so AI has been kind of an implicit part of what Moderna has been doing from a very early stage in terms of how we not just manufacture a product, but like it informs our decision making and has done for a long time. Not in its current form of generative AI, but AI in and of itself has been used by Moderna for many, many years. It's not new. But I think in the way that people are talking about it now, we're really talking about Gen AI and what does that mean for us, and interacting with ChatGPT. And so at the session we showed today a video of our recent announcement with OpenAI, where we now have our own enterprise ChatGPT, which is hosted by us, which means that we can upload information, not personally identifiable information, I may add, but at least information that we are very comfortable that it's being hosted by Moderna, and our IP is not going to be at risk. And so the journey for us started really with the introduction of what we called at the time mChat. So that was our own. Again, we hosted it because we didn't want people going into some open sourced ChatGPT and that start putting information in there that was going to put us at risk. And so none of us have access to the open source version, but we all, I say all, 4,000 of us, anyone defined as a knowledge worker, has access to Enterprise GPT now. Yeah. And anyone who doesn't still has access to mChat. And so what we found, it was a great way for us to learn just how to start writing prompts. So just getting the basics down on what is a simple prompt and how can I use this to help me with my day-to-day work. We also have Copilot. So the entire leadership committee, what we call the senior leader cohort of about 150 odd people, all has access to Copilot. So we use that in Word, we use it in Outlook, and we use it in PowerPoint to really help us just kind of streamline the process in terms of creating materials.
I love this. Like at the beginning of the day, my first question to Copilot is, could you check my emails and tell me what then is important? I need to give an answer or just read, and they give me these separate. Have you ever used this?
So you see, being boss is his purpose in life because he's also bossing the AI.
Wow, this is really nice.
Yeah.
But you were telling us that this prompt, I think. In many cases in Brazil, we have a huge area to answer too many questions about benefits and others, these stuff we have during the day. But all the company can use this chat. I don't know what is OpenAI. I think they are using to get all these answers that they want to have.
So
I don't know if it's clearly, but it looks like a human. I don't need a human anymore. I can put in front of you a chat, and then you ask them all the stuff you want.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, again, I think the important piece is just to make sure that for us, as long as it's on our version of ChatGPT, we can upload all of that information.
Yeah. It's a private. Yeah, it's not the Chat 4.0 that we have. It's another one. Yeah,
exactly.
I got it.
Exactly. And so we create it and we upload all the information that is specific to our programs. And so it's really then just getting super granular and clear with the configuration to say, do not answer questions that are not answered in this document.
Okay.
So don't make anything up, because that was, I think, particularly under the mChat, but some of the prior versions, you would find that the tool would start to just make things up when it didn't know the answer. And you could even, like in some instances, that can be helpful. You want it to just make things up and
That's very
ideate
helpful,
for you. But in some instances where you want to give people accurate information about their programs, you do not want it to make things up. So any company could do this in terms of if you have the information documented and it is easy to understand and you configure appropriately, then it's actually not that much work.
Okay. Let me see, like, what is the work you need to do? Like, you need to have a huge data structure to provide to OpenAI to get these, or what is the way? Because when you think 1 year, 2 years ago, without this way, generative, like you need to think first of all to be a huge structure, data, and then you teach the machine, and then you collect. So think about us, João. 2-3 years doing this to get the answers we want. So right now, like imagine a company in Brazil, like I have a budget and I would like to start, like Moderna, like Ham told us at the conference. How many days we need to provide all the information structure to put inside and then to collect the answers?
That's the incredible thing about the tool now, in that previously you had to be very mindful of the format that you used. So
Sorry?
you had to format your data in
Okay.
a specific way, and it couldn't read this format of document, or it could only do PDFs. Now you upload the information as you have it.
Wow.
And the tool will just read it and understand. And you can start testing it to make sure that it has fully understood it, but you don't have to spend any time updating formats or trying to, again, I'm probably reducing it to the absurd to some extent, but benefits programs, total rewards programs, in general, are not that complex.
Yeah.
And so you can be very clear about it not going off script, but you don't have to take it from whatever you have. If it's an SOP document or a policy document or whatever, you can just upload that information.
Wow.
So if you have a training that you go through with your employees, you can upload that and you'll be able to answer questions. Because when you're taking new employees, usually we do trainings like for a week, but it's too much information for the first week, and they're learning the job, they're learning everything about the company. So that thing they heard about benefits in the first day, they're probably not going to remember. So if you have that and you can train the GPT with that information, that would be helpful when they need the information.
Yeah.
Right?
And we've also used, actually, so we have ServiceNow as a repository for all the questions that come in, so they don't just email the benefits team. And the great thing about it, again, we can upload all of the questions with the right answers that our team has given, so that the tool is now learning. So it's becoming even more of an expert on the things that may not sit in a policy document or an SOP, but a question that's been asked after the fact. And particularly if the question's been asked on multiple occasions, it will know the answer, and it will know where there's nuance. And so it's learning all the time. The more we give it more data, the more it gets better.
And one problem about AI that everyone's concerned is about jobs. But in this case, I bet the benefits team would love to have the answers from the GPT instead of having to answer the same thing ever again, all the time.
They're not worried about losing their job. They're excited about the fact that they can do more of the value add stuff, like looking at new programs and pulsing employees and really having that better interaction than just responding to ServiceNow tickets or responding to emails. It gives them that bandwidth to say, we can do it. And I think Stefan said it on the video. We intentionally, we want to have a huge impact on the world, but we think if we do this in a digitized way and we leverage AI, we think we can do it with a smaller headcount. And I think most companies are dealing with this issue. We don't have as much budget as we used to. We probably don't have as much headcount as we would like. And so how can we do these things in a more streamlined way? And I think AI is like at the center of all of that.
A little question like, so how many days that the time you sign up and then you spread this to the company, to all the company?
So we, one of our mindsets at Moderna is acting with urgency. So we were tasked with doing what we call sprints. So we've just done 2 sprints, and we're about to finish both our benefits GPT and our equity GPT. Both of them will have been done in just under 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
You mentioned many, like there is not only about benefits, but what else do you have GPTs for in HR?
So in HR, we have one for an interview guide, depending on the type of job. We have like specific benefit ones, like we have a lifestyle spending account that we use. This will now be subsumed within our benefits chapter, but it's one that we didn't even create. So I think I mentioned we don't have enough governance around the GPT creation, but we saw it posted, and you can go in when you see that one is available for Moderna employees to use, you can see who created it. And so we felt good about it in that it's such a valued benefit that somebody went as far as to create a GPT for it, which is great. So there are several in HR. I think that TA is talent acquisition is the obvious space for that. But I think we're going to see more and more. I think part of the reason that we chose intentionally across HR, we chose equity and benefits as the place to start, is because there is such consistency in program design. Whereas once you start getting into the more nuanced pieces that aren't in a document somewhere, that's where it starts to get trickier. So I think I mentioned I run payroll. That's a more complex one because we don't want people uploading their personal information and so on. But we still think we can answer maybe 50% of questions just to help people navigate their pay stub. Like a lot of people don't even know how to read their pay stub. Those are things that we can really automate quite quickly.
You made a good point now because it's not 100% accurate. So even if it can answers like 50% of the questions, do you still put it on use? And
yeah, I think there was a question that came up at the session today where a gentleman asked, how do you know when it's ready? And I think, I hate saying this because I was a consultant for a long time, but it depends. It depends on, one, what the topic is. So how accurate do you need it to be? How comfortable can you be with it not either answering the question or answering it incorrectly? I think there's less appetite to accept incorrect answers. I think there's a fair degree of acceptance that, okay, if it doesn't know the answer, that's fine. At least I started somewhere. Previously, it would be, I've got to find the link on the intranet, and that was infinitely harder than this. And so I think it really does depend on what the topic area is, but typically we'll, broad rule of thumb, as many companies will live off the 80-20 rule. If it's 80% there, we'll worry about the final 20%, but we won't let great get in the way of good.
And I think despite this accuracy thing, I think people could also be afraid to ask someone about some things, and they would probably not not knowing about this. And it's better when they know part of it, from the chat and from AI, than not knowing anything at all.
I completely
because
agree.
They simply don't ask.
Especially if it's a manager and it has
so there are some
question
tricky
about
questions.
the stock option program, and I'm not going to ask that.
The number of times people come to me and said, I have the most unbelievably stupid question. I'm like, it's not stupid if you don't know the answer, but people are embarrassed to ask. This way they don't have to interact with a person where they feel like they should know the answer. Full transparency, like my CHRO messaged me yesterday, and embarrassingly, I didn't know I couldn't remember whether it was 16 or 18 weeks that we have paid parental leave. And so I just quickly checked it and saw that it was 18 weeks. So, I should be embarrassed. I'm the head of Total Rewards. I should know the answer. So it happens across the board for employees and for myself.
Mm-hmm. And thinking about data privacy, so we are Brazilians, we are suspicious. Although it's reading somewhere, we always think, did I get it right? Or it's really what is reading, so how did you deal with I know there is for sure compliance terms and things about using AI in this case, but do you completely rely on it?
No, this is very much I wouldn't say dipping our toe into the water. I think that was last year when we did open enrollment questions through there. But I think what we can do, again, because this information all exists, it's really, one way to think about it is almost like a map to your intranet. Because all the answers are there somewhere, but you can't push them out at the right time. What the GPT does is gives you that possibility to say, here's the answer, and here's where you can find it. So if you are a little bit wary about the information it's giving you, when you interact with it, say, well, where did you get that information? How do you know this is right? And it says, in this policy document here, click on this link, and you can go actually read it for yourself.
And you can actually train the GPT to always provide the links.
Yeah, exactly. You can configure it in such a way that says, when you answer a question, give this underlying source document that you used to answer the question.
That's really good. Yeah. So, but to get to this level, like, it's not an individual approach. Like, anyone will access ChatGPT and start using. So it's a company structure to provide the access and to train people to use that. How do you achieve? Because when we talk to people, everyone's using ChatGPT, but not in a very structured way like you're doing. Like, what's the difference between like just providing a subscription service like for OpenAI services to the employees and actually having across the company everyone using it in such a way?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned today, I felt like I was bragging somewhat, but I'm very fortunate, I know I am, in that I work at a company that is willing to accept a risk, knows that digitizing is the way forward and that the only way that we're going to achieve our mission, or one way in which we're going to achieve our mission, is by really leaning into AI. And so once you have the CEO's buy-in, you have the board's buy-in, the entire executive committee, everything gets a lot easier. And so I think you saw in the video today, it was really interesting for us that the legal function was the one that's most invested in this, and everyone in the legal function is using AI in its day-to-day work. And so that makes life that much easier for us in that we don't have to overcome hurdles. Again, our Chief Information Officer, Chief Digital Officer, Brad, he's pushing this on the organization. And when I say pushing it, it's some people need a helpful nudge sometimes. And I think that's been the big thing for us. And you see people have their aha moments when they realize the power of what this tool can do. Because, like I say, the GPTs and the chatbots are good and great, and they will definitely help to reduce information flow through email and ServiceNow tickets. But that's just part of it. That's scratching the surface. When you think about what the next level is actually taking apart the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, like market pricing, like job leveling, like reviewing spreadsheets, looking at payroll integration, data integrations and inputs, and saying, does this one align with this one? And looking at SOX controls in the US and saying, actually, is this control, has the human oversight, looking at the two spreadsheets, do the things match? Once we start getting there and taking it to the next level, where we're actually saying, that boring thing that I used to have to do and check this spreadsheet and this number, I don't have to do that anymore. Because as humans, we're not built to do that work well. We get bored. And so we make mistakes. And so that's, I think, where, as we're on this kind of evolution and journey as employees, we're learning more. And I think just as, we've only scratched the surface, and I think we're going to get there sooner rather than later. I think that's where people start to worry and say, am I going to have a job? And we say, yes. Your job's just going to be different. And so the more that you can lean into this, learn. It was like with the job leveling super prompt, when people said, but now people are going to game the system. People game the system now. So why wouldn't we just make it quicker?
The job leveling is something like everyone, it's expensive to do. It takes a lot of time. how does that work?
I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like it's crazy easy, but if you have a job leveling framework that's documented, which most organizations do, I mean, some very, very early stage companies will just default to a Willis Towers Watson or a Radford or a Mercer or whatever and just use theirs. And as long as you get their permission, because you're using it, you upload the information with all the descriptors are there already. And so it's, again, the magic of this thing is that you upload all that information in a matter of seconds, and now the thing is an expert on your program. It's just learnt the entire thing, where it used to be, you had a new person join your comp team, you'd have to say, okay, sit here and read this thing and digest it and then ask me questions about it. Instead of that, you're just uploading the thing.
Yeah, and you can ask questions as well. Exactly. And you're already using this one, the job level one?
Yeah, we've been using that for like a year now. Again, that's a one to somewhere between a few and many. So it's not out to the entire organization because most people don't have to get into job leveling, but hiring managers at a certain level, the talent acquisition team and HR business partner team, as well as us, of course, we continue to own the job level, but we've given the tool to people so that they can at least get a good way there.
Okay. So, I'm sorry, Emerson, but it's not like an IT team that is building all of this. Like everyone's using, right? Like the HR team is also using. They're not just, okay, let's start a project here and call the IT guys to build this.
No.
This is so nice. You can cross this wall that is a huge wall, IT team.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll often incorporate or bring them along on the journey with us and say, hey, here's what we're doing. And we may have them at our kickoff meeting. So we have a team that's dedicated on all things AI. And they will give us ideas that perhaps we hadn't thought about to make things better. But we don't ask them to build it for us. That's us. That's why we all went through the training. We all did AI Academy. We've all now been undergoing the training for enterprise ChatGPT. And the stuff's evolving so quickly. So I know Marley Nagler, our head of L&D, is amazing. And she's really now thinking carefully about how do we make sure that people are keeping up to date with all of the updates, because they're coming so frequently. And the next version of ChatGPT and GPT-5, when it becomes available, that's going to require training, and people need to, it's not like you can say, okay, well, I learned how to do prompts. Now I learned to configure, I'm done, because it's going to continue to evolve. And so I think that's a really important part in that if you are going to almost skip the step of having to go to your IT colleagues to help you, then you have to make sure that your knowledge is up to date. And so you just have to be continuously curious and saying, am I getting the best out of this? Is my knowledge up to where it needs to be?
Oh, my mind is exploding with this conversation, and let me try to do three. We have a conversation with Herman tomorrow to talk just about job leveling using AI. Mm-hmm. It was nice because you were introducing this, and we can go deep in this subject. It's a nice one, and we have too many problems when we do this in our companies, like especially with your client and your executives looking to their factors you choose, and why are you looking for my position like this? I'm better than this, so we'll go there. And another point is, João, we have a product, is Consulta Salarial, and it's a survey, a compensation survey, salary benefits, short-term is incentive, like Mercer, Hay Towers, they have the same. But the interaction in this platform is not so useful. Imagine we have the best. It's not because I'm telling you, when our clients using Mercer and Carreira Miller is so good, nice, it's easy. But if you need to compare two job positions, we have to do 7 clicks. 7 clicks, right? You put one position, put here, and then you get another one to put. Imagine interaction with a chat like this. Please compare two positions, but give me the job description. Give me one short sheet or a graphic about this subject and another one. So you don't need to use. It's more useful.
You can chat with the data and ask questions
and boss around.
My other question is, João was doing a presentation maybe 8 months ago, and he was showing us one job position open in Amazon and Google. There was the HR professional is not about a psychologist or a person who treats with people anymore. They need to know about program languages and all this stuff about IT. But when you told me this, you don't need to know any language program. Understand? Like, I have a platform that cross this I don't remember this line, frontier, and I don't need to use my IT team anymore. So what do you think about it? And João, what do you think? Because it's just 1 year. And of course, I need to understand program languages to do other things. But when you think about this AI, they are helping us so much, and you can.
When we talk about AI, nowadays people think first of ChatGPT, but it's not only that kind of AI that we can use, generative ones. There are also regression models that we can build on form data that we have, and to perform a specific task, and that would work best than a generative model for some tasks. And that's why we can talk about this matter in a different context and build like a machine to do a specific purpose, not generate conversations or a chat. So there are many possibilities there. That's why.
Yeah, I think you have you showed us a graph in your presentation. Let me show you that. Generative is the cream de la cream because they use many things around it to like artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, natural language process, computer vision, and then generative looks like the heart of these stuffs, correct?
Yeah, exactly. In the Venn diagram, it's basically taking all of those different elements of AI and saying, okay, now I can create content based on all the other different earlier versions that we've had of AI. So AI has been around for decades, just in a very different way. And so now when we talk about AI, we're typically talking about Gen AI. And historically, we just didn't think of these things as being AI. But like Clippy in Microsoft Word was AI. It was there to help you, and it just had the information in it, but nobody wanted to interact with it because it was annoying, and you wanted to close the
First thing you do.
Now is a little bit nostalgic for us, but no.
Yeah, exactly.
It was annoying.
Back in the day, yeah. How do you default to turn it off when you open Microsoft Word?
And are you here enjoying all the Congress with the other presentations, the sessions?
Yeah. No, it's really nice to just do some networking and meet new people who are passionate about the same things I'm passionate about, and then also just learning. Even like I've been doing exec comp for 20 plus years, and I went to a comp committee prep discussion yesterday morning, and picked up a couple of hints that I hadn't heard before. So like I think that's the great thing about it, is that people are always evolving and moving the whole industry forward, and so being able to just kind of hear what others are doing and picking up some of those it's I don't like using the term best practices because there's really just best fit, what's going to work for you and your organization. But picking up some of those hints and tips is really helpful.
Yeah, I love it too. João is our specialist in compensation, but he loves to study AI and in this new world. And João, you have more questions?
I really liked the presentation. I think it was great, and I like to see the possibilities you guys are like going forward. But I would like to know, like, what's the future like? What do you see Moderna doing in the future using these technologies, and where do you want it to go, like in comp and
Yeah, I think I wouldn't limit it to being just about comp. And so I think Accenture and IBM are two companies that I quite admire in this space, where they've been using data and predictive analytics for many, many years, collecting information and tons of information to help them predict into the future, i.e. what's going to happen when. And so taking things like information from engagement surveys, from just email traffic, from knowing how busy someone is, to say, hey, this person may need to take a vacation, or this person's equity just vested, they are more likely to now be looking elsewhere for a role, or this person hasn't received recognition for 4 months. All those different insights, when you think about what we have in Total Rewards from a data perspective, there are so many thousands and thousands and thousands of inputs. You'd think, and I think it will come, where we'll be able to really start getting very personalized and really starting to say, oh, look, there's a heat map here, and this group or this individual really needs some kind of intervention from a Total Rewards perspective, where we can personalize it, truly personal. Because we talk about personalization now, but really we're saying we have all these programs, and then you pick what works for you.
Yeah.
And I think in the future, with our ability to now analyze data and bring it together and do it in a different way, I think it will be more accessible for other companies that don't have the might and power of Accenture and IBM to do some of this stuff, as long as we think about it, as long as that's our North Star, if that's where we want to get, and I think it is.
I like that, because usually when we are doing something like manually and we go towards technology, we think of standardizing and like becoming a process that, you know, is fixed. But it went the other way. Like we think with the technology, we can now be more personalized than if it was doing it manually. Like,
yeah, I mean, we've relied for so many years on a human intervention to uncover something. So a manager who says this person is just tired, but you need a really good manager who's capable of spotting that, or you need a pretty good comp function who's going to say, oh, actually, look, I'm looking at all the equity data and all the options are underwater, and this is people are picking up the phone because they could just go to the company down the street and get new options for in a different company. And so we've been relying on a little bit of luck that people identify these issues. But I see a world where it doesn't need to be luck anymore. Yeah. We can drive those insights with all the data. It's just they've all been in different sources. Like, this is coming from Workday, and this is coming from my recognition provider, and this is coming from this other provider. We're looking at our medical claims data. That's a different data source. But there's no reason it can't all actually work together.
And we can integrate, like right now you have many GPTs, and it might be able to integrate everything into one Clippy that can answer like employees' questions about anything. Like.
Yep, exactly.
Nice, really good.
You know, like we are here for 50 minutes, man. You know, the conversation is so good. But I have my last question, and we could be here for 2 hours, maybe like more. But the last was. The population, the professionals here in America, and João can tell us about Brazil and United States. João hates when they say America because
he always says
South America, so it's the same like America.
We were already in America.
Okay,
that's
but
true.
No
Yeah, fair enough.
Good. Top 10 emerging skills. The professionals, they are at the moment to work a bit here in America. And I'm seeing like this one: data storytelling, process automation, measuring effectiveness. And what do you think about it? And the professionals you have here right now to interact with this new knowledge,
Yeah, I think honestly, some of the best advice I ever got when I was an analyst, when I joined Towers Perrin in 2003, was to continuously be curious and to just. One of the mindsets we have at Moderna is to obsess over learning. The full mindset actually is we don't have to be the smartest, we just have to learn the quickest. And I think that's true. I love all of our mindsets, but that one resonates for me in that, again, when I joined the company, I'd never been in a corporation before. I spent my entire career in consulting. I knew nothing about benefits or mobility, but I was eager to learn. I've learned more in the last 3 years than I can describe. And so I think the US, I think every country will be fine from a professional standpoint as long as people continue to be curious. As long as they lean in and say, the worst thing you can do right now is just put your head in the sand and say, not for me. I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm going to retire. Yeah, it's not for me. Honestly, I think you'll miss out. It's not just that you'll become obsolete over time, but you'll miss out on the fun. Like Laurie was saying during the session earlier, the last year is the most fun she's had in 10 years because things are changing and evolving. Like who doesn't want to be part of that?
I agree. I think this is a great message for us, like this lifelong learning. Like we can't stop anymore. And I don't know if we have energy because we are become tired day by day. I don't know if you feel like this, like getting tired because of this world that is volatile, and you feel like this?
Yeah, I mean, when you think about Moderna as a company, during COVID, the fear of people burning out was real. People were working around the clock to try and save the world, to create product so that people could go back to normal, to not have to wear masks or not have to, do you remember social distancing? That was the thing. And so when you think about people being tired, like that cohort of individuals who were working because they were saving lives, they were tired, but they got energy from the reality of what they were doing. And similarly, again, it sort of sits with our mindsets is I'm energized when I'm learning something. So it's tiring and it's hard work.
Yeah.
And it's got to be sustainable. So you've got to find those opportunities to rest and recover. But personally for me, I often say, our former head of learning used to say that the end of your day at Moderna, you go home and you're just exhausted. And it's not because you've worked more hours than you used to work elsewhere or you've it's because of what he would refer to as the cognitive load, that things have just been thrown at you and you've had to sort of navigate that and you're tired from that, but it's also exhilarating. You look back you can look back on the week and say, wow, I learned X many things. I'm exhausted, but I'm actually energized by that as well. So I think both things can be true. You can find it tiring, but also energizing.
But I think, I know I know it's probably not a fair comparison, but when we are kids, we are also learning the most of the day, the most of the time, and we are not getting tired of it, because we keep ourselves curious about the world and about the new things we are learning. But I think we lose this ability during the time, and also when we are getting older, we lose this ability to get excited about new things. We are always thinking, just another thing I need to learn, another subject, another study, another something. And we are always thinking, that's so exhausting. But we lose this curiosity, and you told us about this. So I think it's a good mindset, a good thing to keep in mind.
And schools are probably guilty for that, because kids are curious, but in school they is a process to teach that's not interesting. So we can change that as well. Like let's make learning more fun. And we can. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, my son goes to a Montessori school, so it's more self-guided learning, and he's tired at the end. But that's normally because he's played soccer before school and during school. But no, I agree with that. That's a great analogy.
So like my 2-year-old boy, I think we are not getting tired. When I think about him, he take a nap twice a day because of this, because all the time
the brain
learning, brain's full, like we need to rest and do. But
so
when we talk,
I would take this. I would take a nap after.
Of course, it's good.
That's a good advice.
Careful what you say on these things.
But when we talk about school, like the motto of we have schools today or vaccines, and this is podcast for 5 hours, so it's not for today. Ham, thank you so much to be here with us, sharing your knowledge and your experience. We love it, and this is really grateful, and especially the last part you told about us, like to be curious every day. So thank you so much.
Really my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Espero que vocês no Brasil tenham curtido mais essa conversa. Cara, isso aqui é muito maneiro. A condição que a gente tem de crescer e de colocar esse tipo de ferramenta na nossa empresa é sensacional. Se você gostou, digo de novo, senta o dedo no like agora, porque esse conteúdo vai para mais pessoas que interagem com a gente. Compartilha também nos seus grupos, fique super à vontade, fica com a gente, porque não acabou ainda.
E não só compartilhar, né? Mas também dizer pra gente que vocês estão curtindo esse conteúdo, porque aí a gente vai atrás de mais temas, de mais pessoas pra contar pra gente sobre esse universo de inteligência artificial. Então a gente é do ramo da pesquisa, da estatística e tudo mais, então a gente gosta de ter dados também em mãos pra poder tomar decisões aí e trazer conteúdo.
I hope we're gonna see him in Brazil talking with us. What do you think?
You name the time and the place.
Already.
Wow!
Have you ever?
I've been there 5 times.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was there for the World Cup.
Oh, man.
And many other occasions, yeah.
Yeah.
Have you learned something in Portuguese?
No, I'm terrible. Obrigado.
De nada.
Good one.
But I think there are specific words we need to learn when you go to a country. For example, obrigado, thank you, can you give me a beer or a banana? Banana is almost everywhere in the world. Banana means the same thing. So if you are hungry, it's a good word to know.
Okay.
And beer as well, because
Also important.
also important.
Yeah. I learned caipirinhas when I was there.
Oh,
That's very important
There's
in Brazil.
another second special word, you know.
So I was good.
Caipirinha and obrigado. Caipirinha, obrigado.
There you go. 2 words. That's all you need.
Thank you. Até o próximo. Tchau.
Ciao.
Bye bye.